All right. We're live.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. Sandy, and I have some amazing guests with me. I want to, as everybody knows, the lovely Jessica Seitz with Advice with Jessica Seitz, and she is now our president of Nurses Against Violence Unite. And we have the other beautiful Jessica Whelan. She is our guest. And she is going to be, hold on, let me just change my screen here before I get confused where I'm at. Jessica Whelan is my mentor, and we did the ANA thing. I think I was her mentor, and now she's my mentor with the Psychiatric Nurse Practitioner Program. And she has been named as the vice president, and we are waiting. Maybe Allison's going to show up on the call. We'll just see, but she is also on our panel as the secretary. So we'll meet her another time. But Jessica, welcome. So nice of you to take some time out for us.
You're welcome.
So I wanted to kind of introduce you and kind of, I want people to understand the brain that I know that you are, and have our conversation. We kind of talked about it a few months ago about education system. I didn't say grammar right, sorry. The education system, and about what nurses are not learning. And on top of that, about some things about mental illness and what people are suffering from, like the majority of things that you're seeing out in the field. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to you. And do you have any questions, Ms. Seitz?
No. I'm good. I'm just excited.
All right. Okay. All right, Ms. Whelan.
So continuing conversation from...
It was a couple months ago, yeah.
Yeah, from a couple months ago. And I think that was a fairly popular topic. I know in my area it still is. And update since then, I actually got to be part of the standard setting panel for the ANCC for the psych mental health exam. And I was interested to see how many steps they actually go through for these exams and how they establish them, because I had never been a part of the process of helping to develop it. And so my role was actually being a group of 10 panelists that help decide the kind of level of how hard the test was. So we had to take the test ourselves, rank the questions on difficulty, and then pretty much set the cut score, which is the score that everyone needs to pass in the psych mental health test. We don't at this point get to say anything about the questions, the type of questions, because apparently they do multiple rounds before then, at least 3 of questions where people are kind of rating them, ranking them, writing them, and etc., and reworking them. So our point is just to do the mathematics of it. So it was very fascinating. I found it even more fascinating that they really try and look at previous cut scores. And I thought going in that I was like, oh, I'll be able to change this test and help make it so that, it starts with this test. If people have a hard test, then the schools are going to have to meet the equivalency, but that's not how it works. In fact, our group had only made the test, I want to say 2% harder from last year. And they said that was going to be too much, and we were probably cutting off minimally qualified candidates that could practice. Our whole group was, let's say, less than impressed with that. It is 1% harder this year. And I find it funny that we argued over percentage points, like that it was like 1 to 2%. It wasn't like we were making it 50% harder or 25% harder, just 1% harder. And this was a big deal to the national exam. So I found that whole process very interesting, and I can see how hard it is to kind of get through the system, even from just the test development side, to actually change and improve what we have going on.
And I really appreciate that it only got 1% harder, because because I'm going to be taking it next year, and I just am cringing already.
1% sounds like a lot.
It's a whole lot right now.
Yeah. I can't remember how many questions that translates into for how many more questions you had to have right. I think total is let's see, out of 200 it was like 150. So I feel like that's fair.
We were also discussing about how the nursing education has just a standard nursing education that we give for the basic like LPN and the RN program, about how like there's literally nothing for mental health and substance abuse, and so therefore it's setting everybody up for failure. We're just going back and rewinding from our last conversation because so it's literally nothing. It's like maybe like a bullet point and then a sub bullet point for for acute psychiatric care and for substance abuse. And the boards have like maybe like roughly about 5 questions on alcohol withdrawal, and maybe if you're lucky, 1. And we've had an opioid epidemic for over, I don't know, it's like close to 20 years, maybe a little bit longer. Yeah. And it's just gotten out of control. Now they're mixing fentanyl in with, I mean, I am glad I'm actually back on the floor. I'm still an educator, but I'm also like, I wanted to get in there because if I'm doing the Psych NP program, I wanted to be more current of what's happening. And to see that they're mixing fentanyl in with, and I know this might be old news for people, but this is new news to me, with heroin, and they're mixing it in with cocaine, and it's like 50% stronger. And these people that are coming off of these drugs are suffering a lot. And to have people not have the coverage and nurses not to be able to understand what these people are going through when they're coming in, because people go and have babies, they go in and have, I mean, mental health should be automatically included all into the med surgical education, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a huge disservice that's happening in nursing schools in general. And then when we get to that point and we are getting to the Psych NP role, the book that we're like us educators are teaching is like maybe an inch thick. And the other books I have, I don't know, let me see if I can just show you my massive amount of books right there, baby. Like for real, like that's not even study books. It's just it's treachery. It's scary. So, I mean, it's how do we possibly get quality when we don't have that kind of education that's in the system? We just don't. So, and I don't want to, we're not going to keep this as a long webinar, but it's just is amazing how mental health nurses are not being able to, understand their own mental health. And they're afraid of speaking out about their own mental health because of the fact that it's such a stigma. And on top of that, they don't know how to manage it. And then you don't get treatment, it gets only worse, right? And then your body changes.
I think that ties right in. I mean, and how do we change it? I mean, I went into just the advanced practice exam hoping to make a huge difference in the quality and standard setting of that exam, let alone the NCLEX, which has thousands of applicants that are taking this exam, and trying to A, up the bar there, but B, how do we get the schools to recognize the importance of mental health in their programs, and why the healthcare providers need it. I mean, I see it every day when I'm traveling to these offices of family practitioners, and they're having to treat psych because there are no psychs within 100 miles. And so their patients, they have to manage them, and they've had little more than 6 weeks and a little blip in their family nurse practitioner program too. So how we get there when it hasn't been part of the system is question and being thoughtful about it, because this is how our patients get stigmatized. This is how people, the perception of what the illness looks like. Even today, I'm talking with practitioners and I'm teaching on some of the bipolar medications that have just come to market. People assume that when they're asking about mania, that they always have to be like, oh, that person that's spending all their money, that's hypersexual, that's being, excessive and rapid speech. Really, that's only 10% of the bipolar 1 population. And that's what everyone equivalates with bipolar 1, because that's the textbook. That's how they describe bipolar 1, because it's kind of the extreme. Same with tardive dyskinesia. I on that medication, and they talk about all our mouth movements, and everybody assumes that it's a mouth movement disorder, but really tardive dyskinesia has to do with the entire body. And so patients are also missed for conditions that they have. So we really have to, across the spectrum, have people more aware of mental health, whether they are family practice, internal medicine, neurology, because it's all connected. You can't have any medical condition without psych mental health actually being a part of that case.
I agree 110%. And then, since we have such a, if we want to have these stringent tests and we want to make sure that people are able to practice to the way they're supposed to be, we have to have nurses that are not, you and I get into this all the time, don't we? We have to have nurses that don't have, that have current practice in the field and not have 20 years off the floor and making this curriculum.
Oh,
right.
Don't even get me started for.
Yes, I opened up that can, baby.
I just can't believe that people educating the nurses of tomorrow have been out of practice for so long that they seriously don't even understand the operations of the hospital anymore. They don't understand the ins and out of the environment because they're not in that environment. They are in academia, which is a very different field, although very political in its own ways.
Yes, it is.
It is not the same as a hospital situation or how the outpatient clinic is working, or I used to always get told as a new nurse, rainbows in reality. Your idea is rainbows, but let's get to the reality of the situation and what we can actually do.
Right.
Frustrate me as a social ethical idealist extreme. That really starts on every personality test she's ever taken. But at the same time, we need to figure out a way to get this bar, get it quickly, especially as we're seeing in the United States, things like school shootings and things like all of these events that we have with our, homegrown terrorism, basically. We focus a lot on overseas things, but we can't even get our own people under control, which tells me a lot about how inefficiently we are with our own mental health care, our own health care in general, that allows for people to get to that point in their brain that basically...
Oh, puppy!
Is that the dog that's going to eat my face?
No, that's the other one. This one does.
Sorry, I saw a dog.
I just want to say that I like Jessica because her and I were both doing the Zoom conference in our bed. I'm like, we must already have the same vibe here. We're both just comfy sitting in our bed.
And I'm drinking coffee at 8:30.
Hey, you got to do. So am I.
I gotta study.
I've got 4 kids out there that I've got to go tackle and give them a bath in a minute. So
I threw mine in the
bathroom right now. Over there is kid bath time.
So I won't keep you too long. It's just, I really appreciate you jumping on with us. I want to just add one thing. So we were just this last part. So this is, we're going to try to keep this small. So the PhD and the DNP.
Really cringing.
So the PhD, what you're saying to me, and and you're validating what I found out, is that the PhDs are going to be doing the research and developing the nursing curriculum, where the DNPs are going to be in the hospitals and on the floor and taking care of business. And where are they going to cross over?
Well, there should be some blending, especially in the science and research realm of things.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that that's important. But the PhDs can't be the only ones responsible for the curriculum. The PhDs really, if they have, again, this 20 years of experience off, should really be focusing on getting everybody up, getting the PhD program, in my opinion, up and going, because that's their wheelhouse and that's where they are. Whereas DNPs really should be driving that clinical piece, those clinical courses, because again, they are the ones in practice. But if they're not in practice, I've seen this at some of the local schools here, they say that they encourage people to work outside by offering them one day where they can be in practice. One day? Really? Are you kidding me? Like,
what does that do?
Upkeep. And basically the stipend they get for doing so is a pittance. If that nurse practitioner, so in some of the universities, the nurse practitioner basically can go to work for a day. And if you think of the billing that you can bring in a day, and out of 52 weeks in the year, let's just call that $52,000. They made $1,000 a day. That all goes to the university. The university contracts out that NP. What that NP gets back,
Wow.
The university pays them a pittance most of the time on what they have worked for. So really, it's not an encouragement to continue practice, at least in the capacity of which the university knows, which then I feel exacerbates the problem that we have where nurse practitioners are sneakily working on the side of their university gigs because they're so underpaid.
Mm-hmm.
That a lot of these online schools now, the nurse practitioners are moonlighting basically.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And trying to hide this from the university so that they can survive. And that goes to another huge issue that we have within the educational system, because I feel like the MDs have this a little bit better. They pay adjunct faculty really well. They sometimes pay them, from my understanding, in benefits as well. So if you are adjunct, you can take part of the university benefits package, which we don't have in nursing. So, you're not going to get the best nurse practitioner because she's going to be working where she can make more money. It's very rare until they're ready to retire that they're wanting to go into education straight out, because the payment isn't as good.
Yeah. So with all being said, you guys know my situation, and I need to be on the floor.
Yeah. Doesn't pay the bills.
Nobody wants to put you on the floor.
Right.
I'm overeducated and they don't want to pay.
You're too smart.
The issues. People with PhDs and doctorates are struggling with getting roles because they don't want to pay the extra money. I mean, these skeleton crew hospitals, as they're already trying to roll them in a very tight ship with no extra money going out. And so they don't want to pay people with degrees. They don't want to pay people, who are overqualified, because that just means more money that goes out. And they already don't have enough nurses on the floor as it is.
Well, with that being said, I'm so happy to have you as vice president of our organization, Miss Jessica.
And I'm happy to meet Jessica.
I'm out of this.
Huh?
I said we need to like plan a day or a chunk of time.
Yes.
We can do this more regularly.
Yes.
Because these issues are rampant. This isn't just a Missouri thing or a Florida thing. This is across the nursing spectrum.
Absolutely.
I always say it. We need to have this group that's like nurses for nurses. We need to unite because we have that difficulty getting nurses to follow in with each other.
Aw. All right. Aw.
She's gonna
Well, it was nice. It was nice meeting you, Jessica, finally.
Nice.
All right. All right. Bye, guys. You have a good night tonight.
Bye.
Talk with you guys soon. We'll plan stuff.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.